Picture this scene clearly in your mind before we go any further. It's the second week of January, and the gym is the fullest it will be all year. Somewhere in the cardio section, a person is running on a treadmill at maximum effort, face red, shirt soaked, jaw locked in grim determination. They have been doing this every single day for 2 weeks straight. They believe the suffering is the price of the result. They believe that if it doesn't hurt, it isn't working. And after a full month of this punishment, they will step on the scale, look in the mirror, and find the belly has barely moved. Here is the part nobody is telling them. The suffering isn't just useless, it is actively working against them. When you push your body into repeated high-intensity cardio, you don't just burn calories, you trigger a full-body chemical signal that your brain reads as danger. And when your body believes it is in danger, it does one thing above everything else. It holds on to its reserves. Specifically, it locks down the visceral fat, the deep belly fat wrapped around your organs, because that fat is your biological survival currency. The harder you push, the louder the danger signal, and the tighter your body grips the very fat you're trying to burn. This is not a motivation problem. This is not a discipline problem. This is a biology problem, and biology has a completely different solution than the one the fitness industry sold you. The most effective movement for shrinking visceral belly fat is not sprinting, not HIIT, not a stair machine, and not anything that leaves you gasping on the floor. It is walking. But not aimless, distracted, shopping mall-paced walking. Walking that is deliberately engineered with 5 specific protocols that communicate directly with your hormones, your nervous system, and your metabolism. By the end of this, you won't just know what to do. You'll understand why it works at a level most people in the fitness space never reach. And once you understand the why, you will never go back to punishing yourself for results that weren't coming anyway. Why walking beats running for belly fat. Before the 5 hacks, you need to understand the fundamental mechanism, because without it, the hacks are just tips, and tips without context never stick. Your body runs on 2 primary fuels, glucose, which is sugar, and lipids, which is fat. Which one your body chooses to burn at any given moment depends almost entirely on how much oxygen is available during activity. When you run hard, your heart rate spikes, your breathing becomes rapid and shallow, and your body interprets the oxygen demand as an emergency requiring instant energy. Fat is a slow fuel. It takes time to transport, unlock, and oxidize, so your body bypasses it entirely and burns sugar instead. When the sugar runs out, something worse happens. Your body releases cortisol, the primary stress hormone, which triggers a process called gluconeogenesis, where your body breaks down muscle tissue and converts it into glucose to keep running. You are literally burning your own muscle to fuel a workout that is not touching the belly fat you came to burn. You finish the run exhausted, ravenously hungry, and more insulin resistant than when you started, and the cycle repeats the next morning. This is measured precisely through something called the respiratory exchange ratio, which tells scientists exactly what percentage of calories your body is pulling from fat versus sugar at any given intensity. At a comfortable walking pace with full oxygen availability, that ratio shifts dramatically toward fat oxidation. You may burn fewer total calories per minute than running, but the percentage of those calories being pulled directly from your visceral fat stores is exponentially higher. You are not just burning calories, you are targeting the specific fuel tank you actually want to empty. Now here's where the strategy becomes powerful. Because walking is already biologically superior for fat burning, every small optimization you layer on top of it multiplies the effect significantly. These are the 5 hacks that separate a walk that changes your body from one that simply passes the time. Hack 1. The glucose sponge walk. This hack is about timing, and it is the single most underused metabolic lever available to anyone carrying excess belly fat. If you have significant fat around your midsection, there is a high probability you have some degree of insulin resistance, not necessarily diabetes, but a desensitization where your cells have stopped responding properly to insulin signal. When you eat a meal and your blood glucose rises, your pancreas releases insulin to escort that glucose into your cells, but resistant cells don't open their doors properly. so the pancreas pumps out even more insulin, trying to force the energy in. Whatever can't be placed is routed directly to your liver, converted and stored as direct visceral fat. The hack is brutally simple. Walk for 10 to 15 minutes immediately after your largest meal of the day. Here is the mechanism that makes this work. Normally, insulin acts like a key that unlocks the front door of your muscle cells, allowing glucose to enter. But when those cells are insulin resistant, the key barely turns. However, there is a side door into the cell that insulin does not control. That side door is a glucose transporter protein called GLUT4, and it responds not to insulin, but to physical muscle contraction. The literal movement of your legs walking pushes GLUT4 transporters to the surface of your muscle cells, and they begin pulling glucose out of your bloodstream directly, bypassing the broken insulin pathway entirely. Your muscles become a dry sponge dropped into a pool of glucose. They absorb it immediately before it has any chance to spike your blood sugar or trigger the excess insulin that drives fat storage. You earned the meal, and the walk confirms it biochemically within the first minute of movement. Over weeks and months, this habit also begins to repair insulin sensitivity at the cellular level. And as insulin sensitivity improves, the body's drive to store visceral fat weakens from its root cause. Hack 2. The nasal breathing rule. This hack sounds unusual the first time you hear it, but it is also the most precise, zero-cost tool available for keeping every walk in the fat-burning zone. For the entire duration of your walk, from the moment you step outside to the moment you return, you breathe exclusively through your nose, both in and out. Here is why this is the most important rule. There is a precise metabolic threshold, an invisible line your body crosses when it shifts from burning fat to burning sugar, and it's marked by a single clear signal, the desperate urge to open your mouth and gasp for air. When you feel that urge, you have already crossed out of fat-burning mode and into the cortisol-raising, lactic acid-producing intensity zone that will not touch your belly. By forcing nasal-only breathing, you physically cap your walking pace at the exact intensity ceiling where oxygen is abundant, fat oxidation is occurring, and cortisol is not being triggered. If the pace becomes too fast to maintain nasal breathing, you slow down, and in doing so, you stay locked in the metabolic zone that matters. But the science goes deeper than simple pace control, and this is the part most people have never heard. There is a physiological phenomenon called the Bohr effect, which describes the relationship between carbon dioxide and oxygen delivery in the blood. Your hemoglobin, the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen, requires carbon dioxide to be present in the bloodstream in order to release that oxygen into your cells. When you breathe through your mouth, especially with the fast, shallow breathing that comes with effort, you exhale carbon dioxide too quickly. Your hemoglobin grips the oxygen tightly and won't release it, meaning your cells are paradoxically starved of oxygen even as your lungs work overtime. Nasal breathing preserves carbon dioxide in the blood, allowing your mitochondria to receive oxygen efficiently and burn fat at full capacity. On top of that, nasal breathing stimulates the release of nitric oxide in the nasal passages, a molecule that dilates your blood vessels, lowers your blood pressure, and most importantly, activates the parasympathetic nervous system. You are burning visceral fat while simultaneously sending a chemical signal to your brain that says, "We are safe, we are calm, there is no threat here." That parasympathetic signal is the biological opposite of cortisol, and it is the state in which your body is most willing to release fat. Hack 3. The loaded walk. Here is the challenge that eventually stops every successful walking routine. Your body is astonishingly good at adaptation. Within 3 to 6 weeks of consistent walking, your body figures out how to cover the same distance using less energy. It recruits fewer muscle fibers, improves mechanical efficiency, and quietly reduces the metabolic cost of the activity you worked so hard to build into a habit. This is brilliant design for a species that needed to conserve energy for survival, and deeply frustrating for someone trying to continue burning fat without adding hours to their daily walk. The solution is resistance, and you need far less of it than you think. Put on a backpack and add 5 to 10 pounds of weight before you leave.
This practice is called rucking, and it has been used in military training for centuries precisely because it builds functional, full-body strength without the joint impact or cortisol spike of running. The mechanical effect is immediate. Carrying extra mass forces your heart, legs, glutes, core, and lower back to work harder at the exact same pace, increasing the caloric cost of the walk by roughly 20 to 30% without pushing you out of the fat-burning zone. But the hormonal effect is where this becomes genuinely fascinating. When external load is placed consistently on your skeletal system, your bones respond by secreting a protein hormone called osteocalcin. Osteocalcin is not a hormone most people have heard of, but it functions as a metabolic messenger. It communicates directly with your pancreas to improve insulin secretion and with your fat cells to enhance their sensitivity to insulin signal. You are making your skeleton an active participant in your metabolic recovery.
You are no longer just walking. You are turning a passive cardiovascular activity into a full-body anabolic event that builds a stronger metabolism, one that burns more calories even during the hours you spend sitting down afterward. Hack 4. The optic flow reset. This is the most overlooked hack of all 5, and it addresses something most fat loss advice never touches: the neurological root cause of why visceral fat accumulated in the first place. Visceral fat is not simply a caloric surplus problem. It is, in significant part, a cortisol problem, a chronic stress hormone problem that most people are living inside of 24 hours a day without recognizing it. Cortisol, when released consistently and chronically by sustained psychological stress, poor sleep, and constant overstimulation, sends a direct biological instruction to your body: store fat around the organs, protect the reserves, famine may be coming. Your body still runs this ancient survival code, whether the stressor is a predator or an unanswered email thread at 11 o'clock at night. So here is the problem. If you walk for 45 minutes while staring at your phone, scrolling news that raises your anxiety, you are getting the mechanical benefit of the walk and completely canceling the neurological benefit. The mechanical calories are burning, but the cortisol signal is staying on, and the cortisol signal is what tells your body to keep storing visceral fat even as you move. The fix is simple and requires nothing except the decision to put the phone away. When you walk, lift your gaze to the horizon and let your eyes scan the environment naturally: buildings, trees, sky, people, movement, all of it passing through your peripheral field as you move forward through space. This visual pattern, known as panoramic vision or optic flow, has been documented in neuroscience research as one of the most powerful, fastest-acting non-pharmaceutical ways to quiet the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, in real time. When you move forward through an environment while your visual field is actively scanning a wide panorama, your amygdala receives a signal that translates to "there is no threat in this environment, it is safe to stand down." Cortisol drops, anxiety quiets, your nervous system shifts from sympathetic, the fight or flight state that stores fat, into parasympathetic, the calm state that releases it. You are not just burning the fat that is already there, you are shutting off the signal that has been quietly manufacturing more of it every single day. Walk outside whenever possible, look at the horizon, let the environment pass through your peripheral field, and let your nervous system do something it rarely gets the chance to do in modern life: fully relax. Hack 5. The fasted morning activation. For those who want to accelerate the entire process, the first 20 minutes of your morning hold a metabolic window that most people sleep through without ever using. When you wake up, your body is in the most biochemically favorable state it will be in all day for fat mobilization. Insulin is at its absolute lowest because you haven't eaten in 8 or more hours. There is no insulin circulating to suppress the release of fatty acids from your fat cells. Your liver glycogen, the stored glucose your body accesses first for energy, is partially depleted from overnight cellular maintenance and repair processes. In this state, a 20-minute walk before your first meal forces your body to reach directly into your fat stores for fuel because there is genuinely nothing else easily available. Free fatty acids are mobilized from adipose tissue, transported into the bloodstream, and oxidized in your mitochondria. And because cortisol is naturally elevated in the morning as part of your normal wake-up cycle, your body is already primed to mobilize energy. You are working with the hormone, not against it, for the first time. But here is the second benefit that almost nobody in the fitness space talks about, and it may be more important in the long run than the fat burned during the walk itself. When you step outside in the early morning and allow natural sunlight, not through glass, not filtered through sunglasses, but direct outdoor light to enter your eyes within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking, it triggers a specific photoreceptor response in your retina to reset your circadian clock. This signal sets the timing of your entire hormonal day. It anchors your cortisol peak to the early morning, where it biologically belongs, which means cortisol naturally drops by evening. And when cortisol is low in the evening, you fall asleep faster, sleep more deeply, and spend more time in the restorative stages of sleep that govern repair, hormone balance, and metabolic function. Here is where the loop closes in a way that makes every subsequent day easier than the last. Poor sleep, even a single night of reduced sleep quality, measurably increases insulin resistance the next day, elevates cortisol, amplifies hunger hormones, suppresses the satiety signal leptin, and makes fat mobilization significantly harder. When you walk in morning sunlight today, you are not just burning fat this morning, you are engineering better sleep tomorrow, which creates better insulin sensitivity tomorrow, which makes tomorrow's morning walk more effective than today's. This is not a willpower cycle. This is a positive biological feedback loop, and once it's running, it becomes self-reinforcing. The real reason this works. At this point, you may be thinking, this sounds too manageable, too quiet, too undramatic to be real fat loss. That skepticism is understandable. It was installed in you deliberately by an industry that profits from the belief that results require extremity. But your body was never designed to release fat under attack. It was designed to release fat in conditions of safety, sufficiency, and biological alignment. Every one of these 5 hacks is, at its core, a signal, a precise biological message delivered to your own cells in a language they have been genetically programmed to respond to for hundreds of thousands of years. The post-meal walk says, use this energy now, the muscles are active, there is no need to store it. The nasal breathing says, stay in fat-burning mode, oxygen is abundant, the threat threshold has not been crossed. The loaded walk says, build strength, improve insulin sensitivity, make the metabolism more robust. The optic flow walk says, the environment is safe, cortisol can come down, the reserves can be released. The fasted morning walk says, the fast is ending, the clock is reset, burn what accumulated overnight. When you stack these 5 signals consistently, not perfectly, not obsessively, but consistently, your body responds in the only way biology allows. The visceral fat that was locked in place by chronic cortisol and insulin resistance begins to mobilize. The hard, tight belly begins to soften over weeks and months. The energy that was being consumed by chronic low-grade stress starts to return. The waist measurement changes, not because you suffered for it, but because you finally stopped fighting your biology and started speaking its language. What to do tonight? Don't plan a workout for tomorrow morning. Plan a walk. Get a backpack and add 5 to 10 pounds before you leave. Close your mouth the moment you step outside and keep it closed. Put your phone in your bag and leave it there. Lift your eyes to the horizon and let the environment move through your peripheral field. If you can go before breakfast and let the morning light hit your eyes for the first few minutes before you shade them. These are not complicated instructions. They do not require a gym membership, a personal trainer, a supplement stack, or a perfect diet. They require a decision, a backpack, and the willingness to walk out your front door tomorrow morning and do something that looks from the outside almost embarrassingly simple, while knowing that underneath that simplicity, 5 powerful biological systems are responding exactly as designed. The body you want is not waiting for you to suffer harder. It is waiting for you to signal correctly. Start tomorrow.